Okay, welcome back. We're continuing our lovely conference. Just give everybody time to sit down. Yes. I hope you went outside. Still sunny, and Dolby's still waiting for you there. Don't wait till the end of the day. We're going to talk about the growing market of connected TV with three people. Unfortunately, our speaker from Sky had a last-minute urgency and had to cancel. This gives us a little bit more time to dive in, and it might actually also, if you like, give you some time to ask questions, which I will then direct to our panel. But let's start with who we have here. Rob, in the middle, head of sports and primetime channels at YouTube in Europe. Maybe briefly, and we'll dive into it later as well, but what do you do here in Europe? What is exactly what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and you can't forget those as well. But yes. Yeah, of course, we're in Europe, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So I look after broadly anything to do with entertainment across YouTube in the region. Half my time is spent with partnerships teams, so that is working with our broadcast, production companies, sports partners, to help them run the best YouTube channels that they can run on our platform. And then the other half of my time is spent with our product teams. So how are we developing YouTube in a way that works very well on the TV? In the living room is what we say a lot at YouTube. And so, yeah, my work spans all of those spaces.
Okay. So one hand, helping people make YouTube channels, but the other part, which we'll discuss in more detail later on, is how does this work on a connected TV and what innovations are taking place there, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and giving that feedback as to why this industry is different and needs different solutions to maybe what creators need or the news industry needs, for example.
Okay. Ajay, Norwegian Media from the Nordics, what do you do?
We're from the Nordics. What we do is everything that's related to OTT in a broader sense of things, but we think of the user interface as one part of what we do, as well as the video as the other part. In the Nordics, we work with hosting of video content, preparing video for streaming. Rest of the world, what we do is we work with the UI and UX design and engineering, getting it certified, making sure that the CTVs actually work with the apps, with broadcasters, operators, partners.
So who's the most logical client? Are these CTV operators, broadcasters?
Anyone who wants to stream.
Yeah.
So I think logically, I think it's the pay TV operators and the broadcasters who we work with in Scandinavia most of the time. But we work with a range of companies. In America, we're working with a lot of companies. IAS, for instance, who's trying to make sure that they're validating the ad playback across CTVs. We're working to make sure that these numbers are correct and they actually function and work.
Okay, so behind the scenes, organizing all the...
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, and then Andrew, Head of Strategy for Oliver & Allbaum Consultants. What do you do there? Because you came from the industry, right? Paramount and so on.
Yeah. So, thank you. Yeah, my background is from the industry. So previously I was Director of Strategy at Paramount, and then before then I was Director of Strategy at a TV platform based in the UK called FreeSat. At O&O, we have a number of clients that range across the whole industry, whether it's Google, it's BBC, ITV. We also work with sports clients. Since I joined in March, we've kind of had a real focus on helping our clients understand how they shift successfully over to IP, which obviously the connected television is a huge part of. Yeah. And we don't just do that in the UK, we're also doing that across the world. We're currently finishing up a project looking at launching a service into North America, which has been really exciting. So we kind of have this global reach.
You mentioned some really big companies. You would think they will have their own strategy department and figure out everything there. What's the thing they ask your company for? What's the information they're missing?
Yeah, I think we offer a number of services. I think one of the really interesting things that we offer our clients is what we call Red Team, where they ask us for our opinion on something that they're thinking about, or we kind of give an external viewpoint. So it's like they test their own hypotheses to someone who's outside of our industry, outside of our bubble. Are they thinking in the same way? Are we on the right path? And we kind of test those assumptions. We'll look at alternative partnerships and again provide either validation or sort of test some of their key assumptions. So I think a lot of the time, and I say this as someone that also bought consultancy myself, yes, you can do it internally, but it's very helpful sometimes, especially when you're making big decisions, to get that external advice just to make sure that you are on the right path, or whether you've just hit a bubble and you're all just saying yes to one another because you've been thinking about
So
it.
they have their own strategy, they just want to check back and check if it works in the local. It's not that they come to you and say, tell us what we should do, but...
And I think one of our key selling points, is we can undertake the consumer research we undertake, we take to a depth that I've never seen. And like some of the modeling that we do, especially around the ad space, is incredibly detailed and it's very sophisticated. And I was really impressed when I joined in March and I started looking through. Because what you do internally, it's normally you do what you need to, because it's like normally just a one-off. Whereas the things that we do again and again, and they build up.
Okay.
And I think they're very powerful.
All right, so we have 3 people here that have, from their own point of view, a really relevant insight in what's happening because they cover many countries, many partners, many operations. So the first question would actually be the state of the market. I mean, if we talk about connected TV, the title of the panel is The Growing Market for Connected TV, but all of you, from your own point of view, where you are sitting, what do you see happening at the moment? Maybe you start with YouTube.
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing to say is there's a lot of enthusiasm about the connected TV space. We were speaking a little bit before about how I think sometimes there's the myth that younger people are not watching as much television. And a younger audience is something we're obsessed with at YouTube. We spend a lot of time figuring out what teens and Gen Z are trying to do. And actually, the more we've looked into it, the more we've understood that 66% of teens, and this is US data, but it's kind of founded and indicative, watch TV on a regular basis. And there was this stat that...
Maybe not as much as they used to, though. I mean, regular doesn't mean, it can still be declining.
It's true, yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the starting point is an enormous amount of positivity. And you think for YouTube, we're born from an app that was originally a desktop or a laptop experience, then became fully mobile, and we only actually launched the YouTube TV app in 2018. So TV is very new for us, and we're trying to figure it out for our partners, the broadcasters, the operators, but also the consumers. I think within that, you talked about the state of the market, the biggest challenge that we see, I think, is fragmentation. And it was talked about a bit on the last panel, but we know that a huge amount of consumers are frustrated with finding what content they want to watch and where they want to watch it. There's a great tool we've got called Google Trends, which any of you can use publicly, but it basically lets you see how many people are searching for a particular keyword or phrase. If you look at what to watch, that's increased by 7 times in the last few years. And if you look for where to watch, that's increased 10 times in the last few years. So it points to this real problem where people, and I think most of us have been there.
They have no idea where content is and they just want to...
Exactly. Yeah. And so not to say that YouTube's role is to solve for that, because there's a lot of different operators that are trying to fix that, but that's something that we think about a lot, is how can we bring together content in a meaningful way to reduce that friction.
And that's interesting, the what to watch, because there's so much more you can watch now. Does this mean people are actually searching for completely different things, or is the result of all this confusion, okay, let's just watch the 3 big shows and that's what we're looking for? I mean, you can see this, right? Where they
go. I think search is still a huge part of our platform, just as it was from Google, our parent company, that people still find it easy to search and look for content. So YouTube is the world's 2nd largest search engine after Google. Not a lot of people know that. But actually, we spend a lot of time thinking about the algorithm. Ideally, you shouldn't have to search. You should fire up YouTube on your mobile app or on your laptop or on your television, and it should give you the piece of content that is ideal for that moment, take into account all the context and data and signals that we have. So yes, search is still important because people can go and find stuff, but really we want to get better at the discovery being a lot more natural and served to you rather than you having to go and do it.
Okay, but so one observation for sure is that young people do watch TV, and the connected TV does play a big role and is growing. Yeah. What do you see happening? Because you also have this overview with different clients, different regions. What is the connected TV development that you think is most interesting right now?
That it's fragmented. When it's the bane for many people, it's our job. It makes it exciting. I think that it's still finding a place for itself, and I think the pandemic and post-pandemic has helped it. People are spending a lot of time at home. People are consuming a living room experience, and I know that YouTube would love to have different profiles for different people to know exactly what different people are going to watch, but I think trends are based on where you watch and how you watch content. A family viewing experience has existed for 50 years, and it's just coming back, like you said earlier. It's a cycle of life, really, and it's coming back with internet, which means that there's a digital consumption of content and analytics that's going back so that you can actually create trends with this as well. You've got YouTube, who helps with making sure that this is seamless and organic for consumers, where search is a big thing. But then again, there are app stores which are wide and varied, which means that there's Samsung that has a really, really big app store. There's an Android app store as well, which is bigger. But then again, there's Roku and LG, which have certain unique aspects to themselves. I think Roku as a device and a manufacturer, they have a very good systematic quality to their devices and their apps on their ecosystem. You have Samsung TV Plus, which is aggregating content in a very scientific way to make sure that people who buy their devices actually get the content that they want to watch as well. So
how do they do that? They collect information from whoever's watching, or they sort of think by region, okay, this is sold?
Oh, by region, by household, by who they sell the device to, where they sell the device to, where it is. These are stationary devices as well, so it's a bit easier to do that in certain ways when there's certain aspects that are more difficult, unlike mobile, which is a personal device, which is easier as well. So I think that the connected TV world is a bit different to what the mobile has been, and the trend has been for the last 2 decades. And I think that people are trying to understand the CTV world, which is, I think the fragmentation has existed in any technology changed in the world in the last 20 years. But I think that when things settle down, we will collect the right data at the right time in the right place. And this,
But it also suggests that for the consumer confronted with this super fragmented, incredible offer of everything they can choose, the ease of use user interface will also play a huge role.
Competition is good. The consumer wins, right? So you have a choice between an affordable Philips, a costly Samsung, or a costlier whatever else that'll come in the future. And I think that different consumers have a choice. And I think at the end of the day, user interface is becoming easy. We've launched a service in Sweden last year where, for the first time, you could vote the Swedish Idol, American Idol, the Idol show in Sweden. You could vote with your remote control directly without a second screen live, and you could repurpose that same show video on demand later on without any technical changes on the back end. So we saw 50% of the users actually use the remote control
50
of everyone who actually consumed and voted at that time. And it didn't reduce the numbers of users who use the second screen, which only means that more people actually got onto the bandwagon.
What is the big trend you are seeing? You get strategy questions, so you can see what people are thinking about.
I think just picking up both Rob and AJ's points, I think what's really interesting is there's just been that explosion of content on CTV, where we're seeing so many mobile services kind of coming to the connected television because it offers it can offer really much higher CPMs, it can hire much higher engagement rates. That's typically what we've seen. But the television isn't the smartphone. It's much harder to move around from one service to the other service. And also viewers aren't really willing to kind of do that. They like to sit back, lean back and kind of just be in a service for a little while. And it feels like we are going to go through quite a big moment of aggregation in the next couple of years. I think what Rob was talking about totally makes sense. And I think we were talking about it before. It's just hard to find the content. And I think the big battlefield is who is doing the aggregation. And I think there was talk in the last panel around pay TV operators wanting to be the super aggregator, but it feels like every year smart TV manufacturers are moving closer and closer to looking like a traditional TV platform in some way, and they will try to do it. Services like YouTube or Apple also trying to kind of get into that space. So I think that's the really interesting spot for connected TV now. It's like, yes, everyone now has a connected television, but it's like, well, who's going to win the part to hold attention? And I don't think there's necessarily just one winner. We're going to fall into different buckets, probably depending on age and kind of where you.
And this is also, as mentioned, for consumers, this is the right time, right? Because they compete, so everybody wants to be there and offer as much as you can and be interesting. Now, apart from this industry organization competition going on, what is the result of all this for the content? I mean, how's the content itself changing? I mean, I know you are talking about fast channels, you are talking about adding services to content. Let's talk about fast channels first. I mean, this is a relatively new phenomenon. I mean, there's always been fast channels, let's put it clear, but so many is new.
I think the idea of, I think we explain fast differently, and even people within the industry talk about fast in a very different way. It is a buzzword. It's new for a reason. And I think that when you think about fast, the way I think of it is, you're like with the TVs that you're bringing back into the living room, you're bringing linear TV back into the living room too, because of the TVs, first of all. I think the environment allows the conducive nature of bringing fast back. We worked with a company called Vivo who showed that linear TV and having channels actually works better than video on demand because they're a music app. We work with news channels who actually see this as well. And I think it's important to realize that it works for a time and a place, but also works at a place where CTV is not seeing an ROI which people require to invest in it, even though it's scaling up like crazy. Yeah. Without that money coming in.
Instead of having very new original content, building on existing content and organizing them in fast channels, advertising supported channels, is a way to come up.
In the UK, you'll see your ITV app. When you see all of the linear TV channels, there's going to be an alternating fast channel, and that channel is going to be moving up closer to the #1 channel on your list. Why? Because that's cheaper to do. To make and create ITV1 is a very, very expensive task, which a lot of people don't have that kind of money anymore. So if you're going to make a channel #2 with 100 times cheaper or free, why not? And if you're going to get revenue out of that, that ROI is going to happen sooner. You're going to get investment in creating CTV and its experiences and their apps, and the investment into CTV from a content provider side will only grow.
Yeah, and sorry, it's not that different from a traditional linear channel, because we think of linear as live, but so few programs actually are live. So fast is just repurposing traditional channels to hit the people that want to watch it over IP, and maybe just have that little bit more choice and that little bit more personalization around where they go.
And there's a lot of, I mean, since we're talking about content, there's of course a lot of fast channels built around existing, libraries of content, and a lot of people that have been in the production TV space have huge libraries of content. So how can you organize those? I mean, is there something happening there, a trend right now that makes those libraries interesting again? Apart from saying, we'll find an old series and rebroadcast it, but
any content is interesting to a certain niche and segment of people. There's sport content. There's an adult app somewhere here in this room as well that's being sold. I think that it's important that you have a time and a place and a segment of audience to cater to. It's never been cheaper to make a linear TV channel with fast. You don't, I hope there's no one from Arkiva here, but you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of euros a month to make sure that you create a linear TV channel and maintain it, which has been the cost of broadcast, which ROI has taken so long to make and create and then get paid back. But I think when you think of making a fast channel today, you can get off a scheduler from the internet and open source. You can literally take content, string it together, make a channel. You can integrate towards Google Ad Server. You can, or directly into VAST, create a fast channel. I would think 6 days of work, one intelligent person, a little bit of content, voila.
It's amazing, eh? I mean,
exactly.
No, but and what I think is interesting is, I mean, if you talk, these fast channels are linear channels in the sense that they are, on your remote there's a certain, there's the channel, you can flick to it, but it could be a channel with endless repetition of one program, and it's already a channel. The channel becomes the interface. You would think that you could go on demand to find the latest news program. You could also go to a channel which endlessly repeats the same news program.
But they're making money out of it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's an interesting new way of being on that connected TV, which could have been on-demand content, but is now a fast channel.
As much as I understand lack of investment, creating fast channels, creating an avenue for money to be made, I don't understand binge watching and the business case around it. I just don't get it. I think that if you can spend £10 and get yourself a Netflix account and watch the latest season overnight, and if everybody do that, Netflix is going to die sometime if they have to create a new amazing show every month. So that business model will change, and I don't think that that's sustainable in the long term, because we've seen production of content halt for many, many reasons in the last just 3 years, and I think that'll...
Also, they've now built up such an amazing library, and so many people like to rewatch things as well, so it doesn't always have to be new.
And the interesting thing about Fast is like where it's been imported from the US, and it's delivering a linear TV experience in the US that is very hard to get unless you've got pay TV. In Europe, if you look at like television services and TV operators, we offer something much more advanced. Like you've got restart, you've got backwards guide, you can pull forward. Like Fast is excellent, but at this point in time, it doesn't match some operators' traditional linear TV services, and it kind of, in Europe, it almost needs to be a little bit more advanced.
Yeah.
We need to, like if you're showing a series, people need to be able to scroll back or restart the program, or even scroll forward. Like these are just VOD assets ultimately. And if we do that, it becomes just another way of serving
it's a
VOD.
sort of fluid space between linear and on demand.
Yeah.
Going back to YouTube, because you are developing a few things, coming back from Google and the online world, you have a sort of a flexibility that is different from the way the TV world tends to operate. So what are you bringing to the connected TV screen that is really YouTube, that others don't do?
Yeah, I think it's interesting talking about the fast space, because that's in many ways what YouTube's been built on, right? Is free ad-supported content. And so actually a lot of our innovation is coming in other areas where we need to grow. One of which is primetime channels. So that's a product I'm responsible for in the region, which allows pay services to operate directly through YouTube, so they can have their own channel, and that can be fully paid for, fully ingested, and fully consumed through the YouTube platform. We launched that.
Then you talk about pay TV channels that want to be on YouTube because YouTube is on the desktop and the tablet and the phone, and that's the reason they want to be there?
I think the flexibility helps, the global nature helps, so you can instantly export your service anywhere in the world thanks to YouTube, but also the audience that we bring is incremental to what they can get on their owned and operated. We're not trying to replace these owned and operated service, we want to be the best third-party rewarding platform to help drive that incrementality. So primetime channels is one area, but you talk about other innovation on connected TV, and one thing we're obsessed with is how we can make the second screen, i.e. the mobile, really, really useful. And that's an advantage that that YouTube has, because often people will have the app on both devices. So we think a lot about how the second screen can help, for example, for advertisers.
The second screen in most cases being your phone, right?
Your phone, it could be a tablet, but most
there was
most cases
10 years ago, everybody was talking about the tablet and the second screen, and all the TV people were thinking about interesting new ways, and that sort of died down after a while.
I think we're seeing mobile play out as really that second screen experience. But so for advertisers, again, you could see an ad on TV, and then it could pop up on your phone with an option to buy. So we're trialing that, live shopping. For watching sport, you can have a sort of sport companion mode on your phone where you can get all the live data, betting odds, this kind of thing. So there's lots you can do with that second screen, let alone it can be the remote control for YouTube. So you can actually use your phone to navigate all the video that's out there. So for the future, that's something we're thinking a lot, is how we make that second screen really an extra companion as well as what you're watching on the big screen.
Now, coming from the YouTube that we know from the laptop and so forth space, obviously being part of Google, you have enormous amounts of data. You know everybody's life inside out. You know what they think about, you know what they're searching for, you know where they are, when they are. So bringing that information world to the connected TV, it's a different world, connected TV, because it's so often a shared experience rather than an individual viewing experience. How do you account for that? How do you change to be part of a connected TV screen that might be in a living room?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One, you mentioned data. I think we would say that actually the partners that run the YouTube channels have a lot of data, and they tailor their experience much more depending on where people are watching. So they can run much more content if they're seeing a lot of TV consumption to make it longer format, 4K, 8K, whatever that is. So I think that's one distinguisher on that front. I think I think that's the direction we're heading, is using that data to create a lot more smart experiences. On the co-viewing side, I think there's been an obsession at a lot of companies, but probably Google and YouTube included, to make things very personalized. And actually what we found for the connected TV is you don't actually want it to be that personalized if you're sitting down to co-view with someone else. So we have built a set of co-viewing signals that we know there's certain times when people are more willing to watch content with others. And at that time, when you fire up your YouTube app on your living room device, we'll serve you content that you're more willing to watch with your partner or your children or your friends or whoever. So it's strange because on mobile and laptop, we're thinking so much about personalization. We talked about the best video at the right moment. And actually on TV, you kind of have to think about it differently. So
It's more fuzzy, you know, sort of that direction in between two completely different content worlds.
Yeah, it's just a lot about context. It's about understanding when the person fires up that app, what kind of content is going to be the best for that moment. It doesn't mean that the living room is always co-viewing, because it's not, but at certain times of the day we know that it is, and therefore will serve content that might appeal to both groups rather than just one profile.
Do people actually do that? You know, so I sit there with my family and partner. Let's open up the YouTube app on my connected TV and see what's on.
Yeah,
is that actually
a huge amount? So the living room device is now our fastest growing screen. We've got 29 million people here in the UK that use the YouTube living room app every single month to watch content. And we see about 700 million global watch hours of living room content. And I think that co-viewing experience plays out within that. It might not be that the content is the same as what you normally see on TV, although with things like primetime channels, we're getting there with premium movies and shows. Yeah. But documentary content or music content or sports analysis and catch-ups, there's a lot of formats, podcasts, that work really well on that big screen for communal viewing as well. Yeah. Not just the YouTube that we know of old, which is, you know, certain specific creative videos, for example.
Yeah, and I'd say in my household we do it. Like, I haven't found the co-viewing yet, but you end up choosing whose account we're logging into, because sometimes you don't want a full HBO, like, hour-long program. You just want something a little bit more relaxing, just a bit of comedy, or if she's not in, like, there's, like, during the summer, like, cricket will stream some small games live, which you don't get on normal television. Like, I think it offers the opportunity to access, as with Fast and all the other bits, just different services and different content on the big screen. And the co-viewing thing sounds great. Like, I'll speak to you.
It's also interesting that it's sort of a return to linear as well, right? I mean, YouTube wants to keep serving you, but it's also linear in what changes in the content world, what becomes interesting content. I think a lot of, I mean, Vivo and YouTube just having a music channel on in the background, you know. Last year, one of the company invited me to the Christmas drinks, and so they put on the Christmas channel, interrupted by ads all the time. I mean, you have to do something about that. No, but it's a different kind of content world that sort of now develops and can be on the screen. Podcast. I mean, who would think that people would put on podcast on the main living room screen while they cook or clean or whatever? I mean, they do that.
The other one that's been surprising for us is we launched a product called, which was originally launched for mobile, which is Shorts. So it's this sort of vertical video, sub 60-second scrolling format, which is really big on YouTube. About 2 billion global monthly users on that. We launched it on TV screens, and we sort of thought, who's going to be watching vertical video on the TV screen? But it's done immensely well. So people will just sit there and scroll through effectively Shorts on their TV.
I know that TikTok has a similar offer to TV operators as well, and they're doing really well there as well.
Yeah.
It's on the connected TV as an app, people open it up, and I mean, if you do an hour and a half of TikTok, it's linear TV as well,
for sure.
Even though it's all like 10 seconds. Yeah.
I think we shouldn't be too obsessed with the content format that's being watched, and more with just the trends and the data that we see. Obviously, there's certain types of shows that will do really well on the big screen, you know, premium, live sport, etc. But we shouldn't be too tied to that, and we should let there be flexibility in where people consume their content.
And it feels like if TV needs to stay relevant, it needs to be bringing in those personalized social media contexts. It needs to bring in TikTok. It needs to bring in YouTube Shorts, because that's where people are spending their time. That's a lot of the content that needs to be consumed. Like the hour and a half stat that you said is mind-boggling that anyone can do it, but that's what they do. And if it doesn't come to the TV will lose its importance. Yeah. Like, not massively, but like with every year, it will just become a little bit more diminished. And I think that's
what I want to share. Let's talk about the advertising trends in this field, because a lot of this is ad-supported. What is changing there? What do you see happening?
Nothing's happening. I think that...
Very good answer.
I think that people, like with many things, we're a technology company, and we always try to look forward rather than backward. And some of the things in this industry just baffle me. The way ads are hated by everyone, and yet we're not changing the format of how ads are viewed. We have ads which are an intrinsic part of many digital apps like TikTok and Instagram, but yet in TV we're following the same format that we did 30 years ago, and yet you complain about it, and yet we want to make all the money through ads, and Netflix is launching ads and taking a year to sell the ads and charging too much and not having the inventory that they plan to bombard you with. I think that we're not going in the right direction with ads. I think that we need to be more organic. We need to make sure that people actually want ads because it's going to reduce your subscription. I think it's common sense.
And more, I mean, if you buy, I mean, it's not a big market anymore, but if you buy a fantastic magazine, the ads are part of the content of the magazine you appreciate because they're in the same interest field, and you know, you're like, oh, it's interesting.
And if you want to flip, you can.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's the whole point, to tell the consumer. And I think YouTube did I mean, people don't talk about it as much as they should. You know, the 4-second, you know, the skippable ads and things like this. It was brought in a very organic way. When you know, for a fact, when a person will switch from Netflix, you know, SVOD to AVOD, they're going to switch back, and that's already planned, because what are they talking about, 8 to 10 minutes an hour, which is already cringeworthy. But I think about, when you think about ads, I want to be able to say, hey, I'm going to save 50% of my subscription. Hey, that's fantastic. Sweden loves that. Norway, lots of money, hates that. You know, we just don't think, you know, we think that, hey, people should pay 10 euros a month because I want to have the opinion that we should not watch ads. But then the consumer chooses. Yeah. But this is what I was saying. So if you bring it in an organic way where people can choose 7 subscription services at half the rate rather than 3, which they won't watch at the whole rate, I think that these are the things that we should be thinking about. Thinking about the technology of that, that's another.
You would think by now we have 25 years of IP internet more going, collection of data going. You would think by now the ads would be super relevant for anybody watching any media property anywhere.
I mean, they are getting relevant a little bit, but then, you know, technology isn't making it easy. We've launched MTV, the largest commercial broadcasters operating service.
Yes, not the music channel, but the biggest
Finland, the biggest service there. They're an AVOD service. You know, in Finland, people are conservative. They like really old devices, including Nokia. They don't throw them away. So what happens over there is, you know, you need to cater to older devices, and try playing an ad on a Samsung 2016 device. I hope Samsung's not here, but I want to attack them, because that device is a nightmare to work with. And okay, think about 2017, 18, and 19. They're all nightmares, because when you fix one, you've got to fix the other. I think that a company like us, we're sweating every day to make sure an ad plays. And when we make the ad play for the consumer, we're not able to take the analytics that Google would love and to try and figure out what to do with these ads to make sure that we actually serve the right ad to the right person, which means that the consumer, if you serve the right ad to the right person at the right time, they will like it. Yeah. Exactly.
I think we're talking a lot about this, which is they don't have to be a bad experience. And we've thought a lot about that. The skippable format that many of you in the room will know was something we developed in, I think, 2011 or, you know, turn of the decade. And advertisers only pay when someone watches all the way through, and we were shocked at how many people do watch all the way through. The new one we've developed on TV is pause ads. So when someone pauses in the middle of a show or a sports game, whatever, at that point we'll serve an ad. And we're thinking about these new formats that can make more sense and not be interruptive. I think you mentioned a good example on music. Although, of course, we have to pay those music publishers, and so ads have to go in there somewhere. But to your point, making them less interruptive, less disturbing, and more relevant using the data we have, it doesn't have to be a bad experience. So that's on the ads piece. I think there's a lot more optimization to come on that front.
But that's still ads. That's still an interruption of what you really came for. I mean, does this mean, and you probably have a lot of clients looking at this, that the available money in the advertiser world is moving towards more experiences or sponsoring or, I don't know, music festival, developing their own shows? I mean, is there something going on there?
Well, I think at the moment at least when we talk around television, we're seeing some of the initial steps. Like, we're seeing broadcasters shifting their linear TV advertising to their VOD advertising and their IP. And then on top of that, we're starting to see some of the seeds of change happening. We're seeing YouTube come to the television. We're seeing FAST come. We're seeing sort of Amazon starting to get into advertising. You mentioned Netflix. Like, it will take Netflix, it's going to take a while, but in a few years' time, some of these seeds are going to start seeing that market grow a little bit more and take a little bit from the internet, because the television becomes more digital, becomes more internet, can do performance in a way that it's never really done. And maybe even start to challenge budgets that necessarily go to TV broadcasters now, we may start to see them seeping out a little bit into the fast channel world, into YouTube. So I think those are some of the changes I think we see. I think sponsorship always remains an underrated option in terms of getting your brand out there. That's true on TV. I'm sure that's very true on connected television. Like I think there's some clients we talk to are looking to replicate.
Could any of you give an example of an advertiser that does something super interesting on connected TV that is relevant for the platform that you couldn't do elsewhere? I mean, you have now this combination of commerce and, you see the ad.
That's the one.
Is that happening?
That's the one I went to straight away in my mind was someone like Adidas will run ads against the live sports content we have on the platform, and again, that you could buy the football boots of the player who's just scored the goal directly from your phone afterwards.
This is also actually a really old dream, the connection between, T-commerce.
Yeah, I think it's that's got to be the big area is that direct advertising. I think on the brand side,
did it work? Did a lot of people
for
do
sure?
it?
Yeah. People can go through and sort of execute their purchase there much more simply than if they tried to navigate on the big screen.
Yeah.
I think on the brand side, I think it's much more as it always has been, as in you're looking for general awareness, and so those ads will feel the same, but it's on the direct and performance side of advertising. I think we're going to see the biggest shifts where we make it a lot easier for people to go and buy the thing that they've just seen on their big screen.
Yeah, and I think the sponsorship of, I think it's Channel 4 with Domino's, like that's interesting, because every time you go into All 4, or Channel 4 as it's now called, you see Domino's, and like it's there, and those two things do strangely somehow work, and I think other broadcasters that we're speaking to are kind of going, oh, it'll be interesting to explore that and kind of see that. And that's just, it's advertising in a different way. You don't have to do the pre-roll. And it works really well for your brand because you're not interrupting the experience.
Mm-hmm. If we look at other ways of monetization, what other ways now turn up to make money apart from working with advertisers? You help companies also in the back end of this, but
what we do is we make sure that the UI and UX is good enough. We're not a creative agency; we're a functional and technical and an agency that understands the devices, which means that there is an intricate difference between a Samsung Roku and a different device. So what we do is we functionally make sure that the device functions well with the UI that there is. You can't have a exact Android TV UI UX on a Samsung TV and Roku. These are different devices and they need to be catered to differently, much like Apple and Android are different. They are intrinsically the same as well, but there are small nuances, 5 to 10% that's different, that's importantly different between these devices. So we make sure that that's catered to. Mm-hmm. Within the CTV world as well, we're trying to make a non-invasive way of increasing interactivity within the shows. So we've done some apps where you're watching a news show where you can actually do a sort of survey with the audience, which is non-invasive again, which you can toggle off and make sure that I don't want to be involved with any sort of interactivity. You can do voting, you can do polling. It doesn't need to be relevant to the content itself. Think for yourself as watching National Geographic and looking at a hippo swim, but you're asking what pet do you have at home? It doesn't make sense, but gamification, making sure that there's some level of interactivity. What we do is, whether it's a mobile second screen or a clunky, disgusting old remote, we make sure that you can use an up and a down.
Always works, yeah.
It should work because somebody who's actually paid that extra amount for that remote should be able to use it. And we've seen that people actually like using the remote when it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember an example from the UK many years ago. It was about betting on football games, whether somebody would score or not, and it didn't work on these very important games because then everybody's completely in it. But it worked on the really boring games because then you have time, mental space for additional activity, check your mail or do some interaction, right? Yeah. It's because you integrate everything for that screen. That screen itself becomes real estate as well, of course. The
Absolutely, and that's where, to answer your question, yeah. So if we do our job well, where interactivity is conducive for longevity of viewing any app and being on the app, and that's real estate, which means that when an ad plays, people want to stay. And the idea is the longer you view. So for instance, when we say that on some content, linear TV works better than VOD, and you actually promote that on the home screen rather than VOD, you're essentially asking people, we've seen numbers of up to 400 times better in terms of the amount of time that people would watch a CTV app, which only changes by presenting the content differently, let alone not even thinking about interactivity, which is a very new space on connected TVs directly.
Yeah, and I think for platform owners and aggregators, I think there's revenue opportunities around promotion. Like I think there's lots of different windows on connected TVs, both in the apps and on the TV manufacturers, for it to pay, for it to get your content promoted, to get your app promoted. So I think there are revenue opportunities there. There are also spaces, like I always notice on my Samsung, there's always a little weird display ad for something. Sometimes it's for the latest Samsung phone, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. That's like always really neat. Like I'm not going to buy it, but like it's neat. And they kind of pair up with whatever games console I've got, like whatever the latest one is there. So I think there are opportunities to do some interesting display, and I think there's some big opportunities around sort of doing recommendations, or like allowing commercial companies, like your partners, to promote their latest content, like their biggest show, whatever it is. I think those are some of the real opportunities. And I think finally it's just enabling people to very easily move from one subscription to the next. So you don't get stuck. And I feel like we talk around people switching SVOD services a lot. I think if you can make that easy, there's a huge opportunity to just make some additional revenue, because people sometimes want ads, but sometimes also just want to shift to a place where they don't.
I think on our side, we just want to offer flexibility to our partners, so the broadcast and the operators, to run whatever business model they choose through YouTube. So it might be ads, where we've come from. It might be primetime channels, where it's subscription-based, and we have a revenue share on all of these products. It might be pay-per-view. So we have pay-per-view events for sports, especially boxing, etc. So I think with us, it's all about, and I've never seen so many models developed as in the last year at YouTube, where we're recognizing that ads isn't enough for everyone. And then we give the choice to the operators of, you run your channel exactly as you see fit. So I think we're actually moving more into that space of saying, here are some more subscription or paid products that you can use. And we've got, YouTube Premium and Music now has 80 million subscribers globally. So it's a real significant product where people are coming monthly and paying YouTube for content. And so we think that transfers over to the TV world as well. And we'll see how that goes with
Yeah, you're now a full-fledged pay TV operator, basically, on connected TVs.
We can offer that to all the operators to run their business as they see fit.
Okay. The future. How do you see it will go from here? And then especially in Europe, because we're a European audience here, we want to know what is going to happen in the next 1, 5, 10 years, and we look at connected TV. A prediction, if I may ask.
Oh, me?
Yes, you're the strategy guy.
Sure.
Tell us what we should do.
I think someone brought up cloud gaming in the last session. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, gaming.
Like, I think that's enabling sort of older folks that like to get into cloud gaming, like the casuals, rather than the hardcore. The hardcore will stay with consoles for a very long time, but it feels that cloud gaming can act as a very interesting way of expanding time that people spend with connected television, albeit not the TV part of it, which would be interesting.
Basically, other services than TV on your TV.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things. Yeah.
I think one of the questions which we talked around ahead of this was whether the TV becomes like the center of the smart home. And it depends what you mean by smart home. Like, I don't want to see what my fridge is doing. I don't want to see what my washing machine is doing. I don't need those notifications on my television. But I think it bringing together entertainment, I think is really important. I think a lot of the things that we saw a little bit in the pandemic will come back. Like, I think fitness apps never went away, but it feels like they're going to come back.
The TV as a place for shared family, connecting to other people in the world. Is that something where you feel more can happen?
I mean, the TV is already incredibly shared. Like, I think
everybody has a few laptops lying around as well, right? It's not the only screen in the home.
No. I think the big challenge is one I mentioned earlier. I think it's got to pull social media back to television. Otherwise, we'll end up on our phones, and the TV will just be on in the background.
TV will be the radio sort of background noise. Yeah.
I think there's a risk, a bit to Andrew's point, of trying to do too much with a television device. There's already so much we need to get right in the entertainment space. We talked about fragmentation and navigation and how much there is to fix there alone before we start thinking about other applications of it within the house, of talking to your fridge or calling people. I think fixing it as the entertainment hub is really the first step. And then again, I'll come back to the point that I talked about before of second screen. I think it's a major opportunity for everyone, is to figure out, while you've got people watching one device and having their mobiles with them, how do we make those more useful is something that hasn't been cracked yet. So
and if you can do the second screen, then you start to know who's in the room, which just leads you to these huge opportunities. Like it works both ways. Great.
It becomes more useful both ways.
Yeah.
And from your point of view, because you see what your clients want to do, where they want to go.
And what they can do.
And cannot do.
Exactly. So when you think about the app stores on CTVs versus mobile, first of all, when you just compare them, you see what a vast difference it is. Searching an app, downloading an app, installing and logging into a connected TV app is a nightmare. And I think that people are trying to make that harder. There's the operators who want to have the experience on the set-top box versus, they want to control the entire user experience versus an audience or a consumer who's used to a mobile phone, which they can download, delete, and not use any app that they want at their will and hop between apps. These things are not possible. So realistically, yeah, we can just learn to find an app, download it, and watch it in the next 10 years would be fantastic. But we're talking about future. We should talk about AI and immersive experiences and fantastic things that we should bring into the world of TV again. And I think that the TVs are becoming stronger. Not so strong for gaming, I'm not sure, because these are weak devices and people are trying to save money and use bad hardware every year. But I think that when you think of it's there when you think of FIFA and you think of the world of sports. You're seeing certain providers more than others use a lot of immersive experiences, making sure that the audience is getting their value for money, the amount of money that they're spending. And also the broadcasters who's spending a lot of money licensing this content needs to add that value to the content itself. So they need to add a lot of interactivity. So that's coming in through the content, through the apps, and through the experience that we're trying to build for the audiences in the near future.
And sorry, when you talk about AI, I think the personalized channel or personalized channels, I think there would be more than one. Because
I'm thinking of personalized subscriptions.
But that's where you can start to...
Everything else, so.
But then you've got some data questions around how do we actually get all the services to talk around data, but that's different. That's a harder
Unfortunately, it just got interesting when it came to AI, but end of the panel. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Very interesting.